Commissioners Work Session. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and with me are Commissioners Roy Rogers, Commissioner Nafisa Faye, Commissioner Jerry Willey, and joining us a little bit later, once connectivity issues are solved, Commissioner Pam Treese. So the first item on the agenda is board and leadership communication. Of the commissioners, who would like to go first? I have a long list, so I can go. Go ahead, Commissioner Willey.
Yeah, I don't have a long list. Just a lot of meetings that I had. I think one of the most educational meetings I had last week was actually with assessment and taxation, because we have a constituent who's unhappy about their, of course, about their property taxes are higher than their neighbors' property taxes, and we've all heard this before. So, but I got a brief update on how that whole formula came about and everything else. So it's very educational. So I appreciate Joe at A&T who actually took some time out and to educate me on that. Everything else was just a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, continuing to work on rural broadband, certainly on the Salmon Brae Trail. So, and just constituent meetings, just lots and lots of constituent meetings. So that's about it.
I'll chime in and say the same thing. Lots of constituent meetings. We had a good meeting with Lacey Beatty the other day regarding some requests that they have in the regional transportation plan. Humorous. Yesterday was very, very busy. With Diane's group, CWI, we had an update on some strategic plan, trying to get some information there. Lunchtime had a regional meeting with Kurt Schrader. I don't write these things. I didn't follow script, as I normally don't, but they referred to me as, they wanted me to say as the elder statesman. And Kurt and I got a good laugh at that, because he and, in fact, Earl and I are the exact same age, as well as a certain congressman out of Eugene, so who will be named later. He likes to think he's younger, but that was a good laugh. We then went to a long meeting last night with both the chair and vice chair of the OTC at Region 1. It's a little difficult herding cats, as you might guess. 36 folks who were panelists, and about another 38 who were just online, all wanting to ask questions. So that was a very late meeting. Jason Snyder has his State of the City tomorrow night, and I looked. I've got a meeting with Suzanne Bonamici, Earl Blumenauer coming up. I don't know when Peters is. That's the other guy that's my age. And let's see what else we got. Oh, Work Systems, their regional meeting is Friday morning. So mostly meetings this week. That's it for me.
Ms. Angie, I'm wondering, based on what Commissioner Willey shared, the question comes up quite frequently from constituents about why is their property different than another's. I'm wondering if it might be useful to have a little video film from Communications and A&T that explains, some of the background, and our team is just executing to the requirements, right, as laid out. So when these questions come up, we can also refer people to that history spot. So cool.
We can work on that.
That'd be great. Commissioner Faye, how about you?
Same, but I went to two events besides all those meetings, and it was my first time attending the Imagine Oregon event, and that was really, I was very impressed, the attendance of the elected officials that were there at that meeting and that event, and the conversation that's happening to really make sure Oregon succeeds as a state and not necessarily have islands of excellence. So that was a great event for me to participate for the first time. The Energy Trust of Oregon had an event that I was able to be a speaker as well. with 3 other women, extraordinary women, one of them in Washington County. And the conversation was really interesting and really sort of urban and rural conversation. They were discussing the racial and rural disparities in healthcare. And it was really interesting to see the extraordinary challenge that exists for folks who are in rural area, and the magnitude of the loops that they have to jump over to actually get an adequate healthcare, or so that was really interesting to consider for us as a board. Loop the conversation to folks who are in rural, and how do we help them in a way that alleviates and saves lives. So that was quite informative. So I'll just share those two. I'll uplift. A lot has happened in meetings and constituents. There's a lot of issues that are bubbling up for folks, and especially a lot in my district seems to be this homeless camp that existed around Baseline and 197th, and so I'll end right there. Be quick and short.
Commissioner Treese, anything you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. And sorry, I apologize for the connection issues that I had. I was in for a minute and out. I just wanted to highlight the fact that on Monday morning, I hosted a meeting with around the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or the CEDS. The meeting attendees were Matt Craigie, Commissioner Willie, myself, Brittany Badgent from GPI, Jeff Ricker from Metro, and John Southgate. The purpose was to really make sure that both Commissioner Willie and myself were up to speed on what's happening with the CEDS, and to make sure that Washington County was well represented in that process. I have a slideshow that was given to us, and I will forward that to all commissioners today. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll start. I have several items. The first one is following up on a commitment that I made in the mid to latter part of March. There were some additional shootings throughout our nation and some traumatic violence on individuals. Working with our communications team, we put together a statement on recent gun violence, and I made it clear that that was a statement from me as the chair of the Board of Commissioners, and that I would follow up and talk with you and see if you'd like to sign on to that statement at our first available meeting. So that was issued the latter part of March 23rd, and also sent to you in our inbox. But the top line messages are, noting the violence in Boulder, the violence in Atlanta, where 6 Asian American women were killed and another injured, and making it clear that these acts are an outrage and have no place in our society, that we continue to support racial justice and equity in our community, and encouraging everyone in our community to educate themselves on the history of oppression and violence, particularly directed at our Asian community members, and to ensure that we are patronizing Asian businesses and supporting one another here in our community. So I just wanted to highlight that to all of you and see if you have any questions or comments. None? Okay. All righty. Next, had a meeting with Senator Merkley, as organized by AOC, the Association of Oregon Counties, really going over the various components of the American Rescue Plan. On his website, his team has put together multiple handy one-pagers on the various aspects of the ARP. He talked about there being good policy and good politics, and the work that Congress is continuing to press on with. Washington County is receiving approximately $116 million. And we haven't had the opportunity to talk about that yet as a board, but just some top line messages that we know this funding needs to be spent by the end of 2024. There is some parts of it that can be used for covering revenue loss. There are various aspects to the bill. It's a big bill. And also, we are going to need to hire staff to help us ensure that as we make use of this funding, that we have the appropriate staff on board to handle any contracts and so forth. So I know Ms. Angie will be speaking to this later, or I think she will be. But it's going to take us a little bit of time to work through some proposals. So just a heads up on that. We have time. So just as we're all in the throes of catching up on a lot of work that's been delayed because of the response to the coronavirus, we'll get that in hand. Next topic. Last night at the weekly Tri-County Chairs meeting, the governor joined us, and the White House is advancing the eligibility timeframe for the vaccine, which is good. Unfortunately, they are not advancing the dates for available doses. So on a per capita basis, Oregon is number 47 in the list of states receiving doses. And our supply here is a bit acute here in the Tri-County region area. Key messages are continue. Everyone needs to continue to move ahead with getting vaccinated as soon as you can. Unfortunately, we do have some members in our community who are signing up in multiple avenues for the vaccine, and they're not going back and canceling their multiple bookings. So there are no-shows at various events, which is keeping other people from getting appointments. So we need to get the word out. Don't multi-book and don't be a no-show. So that's what we're being asked to do at the moment. Let's see. There was a JPACT meeting on April 6th. And I want to make sure that as we have our representation there, that it continues to reflect our board position. I know that there was some expression of changing policy on the regional flexible funds allocation. That is not something that I support, nor had there been discussion on that. So if you're interested, catch up with that meeting. Let's see, AOC, a couple things going on with AOC in advance of the board meeting next week. As I mentioned previously, AOC is investigating purchasing a nearby building that would allow AOC to get out of a joint ownership with OSBA, the School Board Association that controls the majority of the local government building. AOC uses about 1/3 of that building. So it is believed through the numbers and various market assessments that AOC would be able to sell their portion of the building and the associated apartments and cover much of the purchase price. I did a bunch of this homework with AOC because it is likely that at the board meeting next week, they'll be looking for approval to move forward with a contract. And I wanted to make sure that I reported back to all of you. I was concerned that purchasing the building might obligate the AOC membership in a way that would cause further strain on Washington County. But from the facts that have been shared that I can speak to publicly, it looks like there will be some good cost coverage. So I don't see a risk exposure there. If you do have concerns on that, could you let me know now? Okay. All righty. Also associated with AOC, the membership committee has done a lot of work in association with the finance committee to come up with an updated membership dues scheme. There is a, let's see, where's the note? There is a set of meetings coming up. I misplaced the date, but you'll all be receiving an invitation to town hall, I believe on Monday, the 19th or the 26th of April. So they're trying to make sure that they follow up with good communication on that and handle any Q&A you may have on that. Our AOC membership is a good value for us, at least for those of us who've gone through AOC County College, and it is a great forum for us to work with our colleagues around the state. So it's a membership level that I'm comfortable with us continuing to support through our budget. Another topic, through our constituent reports, you can see that we've received various requests to pursue an ordinance to prohibit the sale of puppies and kittens in pet stores. This sounded so familiar to me that I asked Alan about it, and he did the research to let me know that there was a bill in the 2019 session, but that that ended in committee as there was the unexpected adjournment. Well, there was the adjournment in 2019. We don't have a problem with the sale of puppies and kittens in pet stores here in Washington County. There are no pet stores that sell puppies and kittens. They're all pretty firmly dedicated to supporting adoptions of rescue animals. So I'm recommending at this time that we don't pursue an ordinance on that matter, but wanted to make sure that, as I said in my email to you, that I followed up with you at our meeting on that. Is everyone comfortable with that scheme? Thumbs up, head nods. Okay. Okay. I've been going to various city council meetings as part of the SHS, the Supportive Housing Services Local Implementation Roadshow. Last night it was very difficult to view the Cornelius City Council meeting. The members of the City Council and their presenters hold their meeting on Zoom, but for the public, You don't get to watch the Zoom meeting. It's only handled through TVC TV and their live stream, as well as on the television. And the visual quality is very, very poor. So after about 15 minutes of eye strain there and earning myself a headache, I said, not going to be doing this anymore. So it makes me that much more grateful for the IT support that we have here and how other city councils handle that. Related to city councils, I've had some meetings with different individuals on city councils in Tualatin as well as Beaverton. As you know, through our election cycle in 2020, we have many new city councilors all across Washington County. Then lastly, we had an audit committee meeting last week. You can see that we have items on our consent agenda today. There was one problem detected. Our staff found it just before the audit company found it. So there was an uncorrected misstatement. Essentially, it was a mistake in a spreadsheet, and management is putting in place better processes so that there are cross checks on that. That was on the Washington County audit. The audit was issued in March, which is a late release compared to usual, given that the OMB guidance for CARES Act testing was so late in coming. There was a single audit on federal awards, given the monetary status on that, and there was uniform guidance on that. So there was that one deficiency with the final adjustment that I mentioned. There were no disagreements with management. So that's pretty much it on the Washington County audit. And the Clean Water Services audit, the auditor mentioned, the financial auditor from Moss Adams did note that having a virtual audit was very different than the past normal practices. And also there were many retirements of CWS staff, so that had to be worked through. It took extra time to have a virtual audit, but there was a lot of credit given to Kathy Leader. There were no weaknesses or deficiencies. The internal controls are strong, and there were no findings or adjustments. So good work there. Phew. And that's it from me. Busy times. Okay, so I think that's it. Anything else on board communications from anyone? All righty, we'll turn it over to leadership communications. Hey, looks like we're back on time. Great. Go ahead, Ms. Angie.
Good morning, Chair Harrington and board members. So I wanted to just briefly touch on our CRF funds and next step for our American Rescue Plan Act moving forward. So as a reminder, on Washington County's website, there is a report titled Lift Us Up, Keep Us Going, Washington County's Use of CRF Funds in 2020. That report is available for public viewing, and staff will be formally presenting the report to the board later this month. I do want to give a huge shout out to all Washington County staff, and specifically Philip Brandsworth and Aaron Doyle for their hard work of pulling this report together. It is laid out as a story with data that connects the dollars to outcomes within the community. So I was very prideful in reading that. So I would encourage each of you taking that time, as well as it's a great document to share with community members as well. I do want to also express appreciation to Chair Harrington and Commissioner Rogers for their active work in the work group, the steering committee of the CRF funds. So that's looking backwards. So now let's look forward to the American Rescue Plan. We do have a longer timeline for the expenditures of funds, and we are transitioning from rapid response to a hybrid model of response, but really ultimately focus on recovery. And so I have asked Chair Harrington and Commissioner Willie to serve on the ARP work group steering committee. We will be pulling together that steering committee meeting within the next couple weeks. So Chair and Commissioner will be working with your staff assistants to get that meeting on your calendar as it works for your calendar. We are looking back at and reflecting on the CRF framework and how that framework can be modified given the American Rescue Plan. It is important to note that I know there's eagerness from our community partners to be expending these funds. There is not Treasury guidance issued yet. And our indications are the Treasury is not planning to issue their guidance piecemeal. They're planning to issue the guidance as an entire package. So that guidance is not expected for another 30 to 45 days. So I do just want to underpin that nuance, because while we can read the plan, it's also important to look at the plan as well as combine the Treasury guidance as we look at potential projects, priorities for the American Rescue Plan.
Ms. Angie, related to that, maybe this is already noted on the CRF page, but could communications, you and communications help us have a message so that we're able to utilize our CRF storyboard as a way to say, we make very thoughtful decisions and we follow through in a very disciplined manner to support our community and put these dollars into action. Or
Yes.
however Philip would put it in his expert way.
We can absolutely do that. And then I just also wanted, were there any other questions on ARP and next steps moving forward? So then I just wanted to briefly touch on vaccines. And Chair, you had mentioned supply. There is a significant desire from Washington County workforce for vaccines. So similar to the questions that you are receiving from community of the low supply of vaccines, we are receiving those same concerns from employees. So moving forward, we are continuing to encourage telework and ensuring that there's safety in the workplace so that employees feel supported as they're trying to access vaccines. And we're pushing out resources and employee information as well.
We've tried to move away from being so COVID focused, but I do want to highlight for everyone that we did receive the email from Leah Horner last night. If you don't have that handy, let me know and I'll forward it to you again. That did talk about multiple counties essentially backsliding in the risk categories, that Oregon is in that spring surge. We are feeling it, and there are some changes that have been made with regard to judging if you're moving to extreme risk. So we continue to remain in moderate risk. Thank you to our community members. Both Clackamas County and Multnomah County are moving from moderate to high risk starting Friday. So most businesses like restaurants are handling their customers outside as opposed to inside. So that movement isn't expected to cause too much difficulty in our community, but it's concerning nonetheless. Thank you for letting me come back to COVID, Ms. Angie.
And that concludes my weekly report.
All right, I'll jump in. I'm sorry I was late this morning. I had a COVID test. Took a little longer than I expected, but minor medical procedure I have to get the test for. So anyway, working with Heather and Eva on getting that contract to our new county council. So that'll be out. And later today, we're having Kim talk about litigation just as an overview in an executive session. Although I do note that we'll have to mention this pitcher versus Pat Garrett. She just won a dismissal yesterday. So that was a bit of good news. So, and you'll hear about that later. So thank you.
Ms. Taniguchi Dennis, Clean Water Services.
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, board. I really did want to add the kudos to Kathy Leader. It was a difficult audit in the sense that we were down our senior accountant, and Kathy and her entire team did a phenomenal job on it, and Clean Water Services finances continue to be strong. Not to overly focus on COVID also, but the research team is reporting that they're seeing increasing trends of the virus in the raw sewage at the headworks of the Forest Grove, Hillsborough, and Durham water resource recovery facilities. So they wanted me to let the board know. So there is the spring surge that is occurring. So it's the continued safety protocols. And we do have one active case of COVID in the workforce. And I do want to commend the HR team. They're just doing a phenomenal job supporting all of the employees and families at Clean Water Services. Thank you.
Well, not only do we support our community, but we also definitely support our workforces at the two agencies. So, all righty. Thank you, everyone. Some formal agenda item changes. Ms. Angie let me know that she's pulling an item off of the consent agenda. It is item 2R, I believe it is. Yes, 2R under the sheriff's office. So that is the only change. It's a big agenda today. I'm hoping that the two proclamations will move along because we have a lot to go over. So, all righty. Anything else before we move on? Commissioner Rogers.
I think we'd be well advised to cover our appointment process and comments today. I think that's a issue that we probably all have some comments on.
So I'm assuming we'll handle that during our board meeting.
If that's where you want to take it, we certainly can. I think it might be well advised to have some conversation here.
So now I understand you're proposing that we spend some time talking about it now. So thank you for clarifying. So what we have in the agenda is two support documents. One that is the full roster for each commissioner as a reflection of our March 4th public meeting. And then the other document is the full slate of all of the various committees, those that are external and then those that are Washington County committees. Some of the committees on that table are marked in red because we don't have the board bandwidth for covering all of those. And then I know Commissioner Treese has provided a proposal as well. I was planning at the board meeting to do essentially, I'll do the staff report of what's in the packet. And then I was going to suggest that we put a motion on the table in order to advance to board discussions and consider any proposals.
Are you taking comments now? Because I'll certainly give mine, and others might as well. but you're the chair, so you can say we take it now or we take it at the open meeting.
I have no problem we're all peers here in the work session. So if you have something today to say, please contribute it.
Thank you. I'd be happy to start out. One, I want to take the personalization out of this. It was never my intent on my many, many comments to make this a personal item. It's all about the best for the county, and it's about the best for what we hope to achieve as a county. On 1/7, when all this started to take place, I was a bit surprised. And frankly, the reason I was surprised is we had a new commissioner who, after not even 3 days on the job, said, I'd like these committees, never having attended one, never having been involved. And to this day, not having been involved either in any Region 1 committee or WCC meeting, to my knowledge. And you can frown, but this is my feelings, and we all have feelings. On 3/4.
Mr. Rogers, I'm just puzzled that a moment ago you said, let's take the personalization out of it, but now you've moved to personalizing it. So that's why I'm just a little puzzled.
Personalization in my part, focusing on me. On 3/4, Jerry made Commissioner Willie made some comments. One of them had to do, and I'll pick on it specifically, had to do with some timing issues. I think it's always good to have succession plans. I mean, that's what I do for a living. So I believe in those, but I didn't realize this was a succession plan. Commissioner Willie suggested some sort of a change. I don't know that he had time to think about it. An assignment that I have that would on 1/22 that I would be removed from the R1 Act. For those of you who've been here for a bit, you know that I was appointed to a 4-year term on that act. So that doesn't expire till June 30th of 23. I'm right square in the middle. So if there is cause, Commissioner Willie, if that was intent, then I'd love to hear it. Not only is that embarrassing, it's a problem in terms of reputation, and that's what I've built my entire career on. That was a issue that we have having attended every meeting of the R1 Act, chairing the R1 Act, being actively involved. It's a bit of a problem to say I'm being removed without cause. It creates a lot of issues. There isn't a plan in place because no one expected that to happen other than 2 reasons. One, somebody's no longer in office or they resign. And I am not doing either of those. So if you want to remove me, that's fine. You can do that today. But I'd like a cause because we have to take that back. Commissioner Treese, you wrote a letter, which I thought for the first time was fairly detailed, though it lacked a lot of specifics. So I would comment that it didn't do that. There was no real succession plan. It doesn't include all the committees, but at least for the first time, there was something strategic in my mind. And I thought that was well advised. There was also a comment that you made regarding bylaws and WCCC. We have so many issues there that we need to correct. That the one that was pointed out in a letter from Nafisa Faye was a very small part of the overall changes. Had to do with what do you do when somebody's not there in one of the chair or vice chair roles? How do you relate committees together? So the cities are eager to get at that work as well. And now it is about feelings, about my particular feelings. Commissioner Faye, you wrote a letter to Commissioner Treese. And I want to tell you, I'm hurt by that letter personally. And I want to tell you why. And we can do this in open session too. We work very, very, very hard to make certain that there is no sort of issues in regard to race, creed, religion. We just don't practice discrimination. It's not tolerable here in Washington County. It never has been since I've stepped on the board, and I've always practiced that. We have a culture of doing that. But I have to tell you, after reading that, I personalize it, and it's just me, not anything maybe you said or meant to say, but I personalize that. And I thought that I was being slapped a little bit because of my gender, because of my religion, and because of the color of my skin. And that coupled with other comments I've heard around this table, also possibly age. So I'm personally offended, and anybody knows me knows I tell it straight up, and so I want to tell you straight up that's how I feel. If you didn't mean that, then I think you should clarify that. But there is no place for anything in this process other than what's best for the county and how the county can react. So we can certainly take those comments again, Madam Chair, out in the audience. I hope they do. If there's any questions, but I feel this has not been handled the way it could have been handled, because your ultimate goal could have been done so much easier, could have been accomplished so much easier had we had some different kinds of conversations. So that's my comments.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Rogers. I think they add to your comments from our discussion at the March 4th roundtable meeting. I think from what I've just heard, that I heard you talk about removal or change in assignment on committees being done because of just cause or retirements. But I know that there's another possibility, and that is a board composition change that happens across the state every 2 years. So that is another instance of revisiting various assignments. Appointments and terms are not hard set rules. So I'm not concerned about that. Can we and should we continue to discuss our strategic approach to board assignments to get this work done? Absolutely. And that is why March 4th, I proposed, or March 3rd, via email, I proposed to you a strategic approach to the various main thrusts of our work. But that was intended as discussion in public meetings for us as a group. So I'm not sure what you're intimating in terms of referring to handling differently. We've talked about it as a group, following Oregon rules for having these conversations. So I understand and hear that you're offended by some of the aspects of conversation. That's unfortunate, but I recognize that those are your feelings. So,
Thank you. I'd respond in two ways. One, and I'm picking specifically at Commissioner Willie, specifically at that ODOT appointment. Those were hard terms. There's no question those were hard terms. And it's a removal. You, Madam Chair, plus you, Commissioner Willie, plus you, Commissioner Trees, all voted that the year before. And so it's a little interesting at this point. What I would suggest that would have happened, at least in most businesses that I'm familiar with, maybe government's different, it hasn't been since my career, is that we would have taken somebody aside and said, here's our plan, here's what I'd like to do in terms of transition. I think that we see that everywhere. That was not done. I received an email, like everybody else, on 3/3. Was I opposed to it at first? Yes. Having thought about it, Commissioner Treese did a good job of trying to frame it a little bit more than just a word of strategy. Strategic, what does that mean? She was framing it, so I appreciated that. But I don't think there's much more to say. This is not a particular pleasant situation.
I just want to say I'm puzzled by the statement of that was not done, because all of us had the opportunity to bring forward different thoughts and ideas March 4th, as well as leading up to today's meeting. So the door has not been closed on various ideas. For example, the proposal that Commissioner Willie made on March 4th. So it was all a matter of just people sharing their thoughts and putting ideas on the table. So I appreciate the level of discussion and solution finding that we had in our March 4th meeting, and that we continue to do so that we can get our full slate of assignments decided. Commissioners, do you want to spend further time now discussing? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Well, yeah, I'd like to have this discussion, I guess, at the board meeting where I was anticipating we'd have this conversation, but I believe in clarification to Commissioner Rogers, I have not been an advocate of removing him from Region 1. As a matter of fact, have had lots of conversations subsequent to that meeting about not doing that. I feel strongly that he should stay in that position. And certainly we as a county enjoy his presence, certainly as chair. So I believe my comment at that time, Roy, was that if we make a transition on Region 1, it needs a longer runway, because we were talking at that time 6 months. That's going to come back around in our conversation, I think, in our board meeting. But certainly, if there was going to be any transition, it was going to be a longer runway. It was going to be basically with your support. And since then, obviously, I have completely changed my mind from the standpoint of I want you to stay in that position. That position was, from my standpoint, was going to be communicated at the board meeting when we have further conversation on this. There's a lot more conversation I think we're going to have at the board meeting on this. And from my standpoint, I'd just as soon have it then rather than have it here and then. So I'm good with moving on.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Would anyone else like to contribute anything now on that topic? Nope. Okay, then. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is appointments to the Housing Advisory Committee.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Komi Calavo, Housing Director. I'm joined by Melissa Daly, my colleague here from the Housing Department. We are seeking your consideration for 7 appointments to the Housing Advisory Committee, which we call the HAC, HAC. So the HAC consists of 15 members who are appointed to 4-year terms. They're appointed based on their affiliation. And some of the affiliations are social service organization, finance, design, architecture, engineering. There is also 4 member at-large positions. The positions to be filled are 2 member at-large positions, housing authority resident, a real estate development or construction professional, a representative for the elderly, and a finance professional. We are here to request appointment of 3 new members. The first one, as you can see from the matrix, is Narendra Sahgal. Narendra is retired from Intel. He also is an adjunct professor at PSU, and he will be moving to the vacant member at large position. Second one will be Alma Flores. Alma is Director of Housing Development at Reach CDC, one of the largest nonprofits developing affordable housing in the state. And it is also so Alma will be filling the real estate position. And then the final one will be Alma Tapia Hernandez, who we recommend for the Housing Authority resident. We are also seeking reappointment of 4 current members. The first one is Renee Browse, who is serving a term. She's a director at Good Neighbor Center in Tigard. So she works directly with our homeless neighbors. Cindy Otis we are also asking for a reappointment. She is a caregiver to elderly. So she lends a voice on elderly issues. Melinda Bell also is a Housing Authority resident, currently the vice chair of the Housing Advisory Committee, and we are also asking for her reappointment. The last one is Sheila Greenlaw Fink, executive director of Community Housing Fund. She is serving in the finance position, and with all the reappointments we are seeking, no other applicants qualify for the position that we are recommending the extension for. So with that, we could take any questions you may have.
Comey, I just have a question on the organization of the table.
In the matrix?
Yes, the matrix. Thank you. Under current vacancies, there are 8 listings. So those are the current vacancies. And then as a result of our doing the appointment of the new applicants as well as the reappointments, how many of those current vacancies will still exist, will remain?
The veteran representative is what will remain. Your action will, so the current vacancies includes the people seeking reappointment, because if your board decides, votes no, they will still be vacant. If you vote yes, then we'll update the matrix.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that my understanding was right. Thank you.
Right.
I mean, I just have one. Oh, I was going to have to make one comment. As usual, you're not hitting singles, you're hitting home runs. I not only with who you're selecting on your committees, but I've told you this before. I'm afraid your head's going to get too big to get in the car. I mean, you're just doing a terrific job, and I don't know that we tell you that enough, because this is very complex stuff and very difficult to manage all the sources of money, all the projects, people. I mean, you got 20 million bosses, everybody wanting to have a piece of your time. So whenever I get a chance, I just want to say thanks. You do a terrific job.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I'm pleased. We have a strong team that I'm pleased with as well. And our responsibilities and our budgets have gone up significantly, and we are doing our part. Thank you.
Anything else, commissioners? All righty. Well, thank you, Mr. Calavar and Ms. Daly. Appreciate your being here. Ms. Angie, it's almost 9:30. I know we have a executive session scheduled for this morning before a business meeting. I'm wondering if that needs to happen before our business meeting.
It doesn't need to happen before the business meeting. As we're at 9:28, I would suggest we have Jack here. We move quickly into the Park and Rec Advisory Board. Item 4, the Clean Water Services Energy Update, would be moved to the afternoon, and then we'll move it immediately into exec session, which will hopefully keep us on track.
Okay, great. Well, then let's move on to topic number 3, appointments to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board and Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board. Welcome, Mr. Liang.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, my name is Jack Liang, Director of Support Services, and I am in front of you to provide an overview of the recruitment of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board. Accompanying me is our Parks Manager, Carl Schweitzer, and then Carl will be providing the overview to your board. So I'll hand it over to Carl.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Carl Schweitzer, Washington County Parks Manager, and I'm joining you this morning to discuss filling vacancies on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board. The county's Park and Recreation Advisory Board was formed in 1966 for the purpose of advising county staff and the Board of Commissioners on all matters of operation, maintenance, and development relating to county parks. The Park and Recreation Advisory Board is comprised of 9 members. There's currently 1 member serving an active term. There are 8 open seats, and there are currently 3 members serving expired terms. The Metzger Park Local Improvement District was approved in 1975 for the purpose of providing stable funding for Metzger Park, its maintenance, operation, and development. And the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board advises county staff and the Board of Commissioners on those matters. The Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board is comprised of 7 members and 2 alternates. There are currently 4 members serving active terms, 1 serving on an expired term, and 2 open voting member seats and 2 open alternate seats. Our request today is to appoint Jeffrey Moxie, Mahesh Udata, Melissa Helmlich, Kim Jansen, Tyler McKean as new members, and reappoint Brad Biddle, Megan McMillan, and Kevin Zurcher to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. After appointment of those recommended applicants, the Park and Recreation Advisory Board composition will be 22% BIPOC and 44% women. We also request to appoint Darlene Dick and reappoint Holly Week to the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board. After appointment of those recommended applicants, the Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board composition will be 17% BIPOC and 50% women. With your approval, I will place the PRAB and MPLIDAB appointments on your April 20th, 2021 business meeting agenda, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the applicants or the process.
Board members, any questions or comments? Mr. Schweitzer, I just wanted to mention that Mr. Udata served on the Washington County Transit Committee as well. So I think that he established a track record of not only attending, but also contributing to the discussion at that Washington County Committee. So that wasn't in the summary, and I just wanted to make sure that I brought that forward for everyone's benefit.
Thank you.
All right, well, it looks like we're all thumbs up and ready to move on. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you, Carl, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, Jack.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on then to executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session per ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions? Motion from Commissioner Rogers. Is there a second from Commissioner Willie? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. We are hereby in executive session. Oh, we have to go to a different link.
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. I will see you over there in just 1